Uh, just before, well, you've been talking about the mezcla in general and the kinds of music. You talk about how people in the United States really love what they hear when you come here. Uh, a lot of us, a lot of people know the Buena Vista Social Club, but what they don't know is that Cuba has all kind of music.
Yeah,
and you have a kid who's into all kind of rock and roll. To talk a little bit more about the mezcla de música in Cuba right now,
right,
and
well,
the influences.
The thing is that if you take into account that there has been 40-something years of free education and music education, so that there's a very high level. Every Cuban musician that you see traveling internationally has such a high technical level that people are just astounded.
Right.
And I'm talking about, for example, in this current presentation of Mezcla, we have 3 people that are graduates of the Superior Institute of Music in Cuba and Havana, like music college. So that Michael Gonzalez is one of the most amazing young trumpet players in the world.
Something else.
And he is not only touring with Mezcla, but touring with different bands from Chucho Valdez to Hernan Lopez Nusa, the Havana Report. The flute player in our band, a young woman, 26 years, who's been an amazing jazz flute player and also plays keyboard and sings, Mahela Herrera. And Nestor Rodriguez, who's a brilliant jazz saxophone player. Last night we were jamming with some musicians here in Chicago, and they were just amazed at this young guy who's coming out. So with all of these years of training young musicians like this, and then having not owned by all of the transnationals, radio and TV, so that the information that we get in Cuba is actually a whole lot more diverse and in tune with what's happening around the planet than a lot of developed countries that should have better stuff. Because I know that you can hear some good radio in Chicago and New York, San Francisco, LA, but outside of that, a lot of places in the United States, you hear everything monopolized by Clear Channel or something like that, and you only get a very limited amount of access to world culture. Right now with the internet and things like that, people should be more informed. But in Cuba, you can see that the musical styles are just amazingly informed with what's happening around the world. We have visits all the time from great artists, including from the United States, that get there one way or another. And we, constantly jamming with people from around the world. We travel around the world as musicians also. And since we don't have the pressure, the kind of pressure that a musician might have in a country, for example, like the United States, to pay the rent, to pay their hospital bills, to have to pay for their children's education. Those things are provided, like free. In Cuba, it's kind of like normal for that. So the musicians can actually dedicate themselves more to their music, to their art, and follow what they really believe in. So I think that's the formula that Mezcla has always used, and we don't fit into a lot of the little boxes that the music industry makes for music. And sometimes in the United States, we used to come and say, well, we're a Cuban fusion band that we play stuff based on Afro-Cuban roots, and we have like rock and roll influence and jazz and whatever, blues in Spanish. But
Pablo Menendez, tell me a little bit about how the government has been supportive of music in Cuba, even in healthcare stuff. I mean, you and I talked a lot about this, but just you've mentioned it just now, how bands can concentrate on their music and don't have to worry necessarily about paying the rent.
I have a little, like a little kind of trick phrase that I use to people when I visit Cuba is that, okay, if you you talk to young musicians, they might be, just openly telling you about all of the difficulties and problems that there are because of the U.S. blockade or because of whatever, like domestic problems that we might have. But the question that you should ask them that will illustrate, and musicians will understand this right away, if you ask them with all of the English that you can learn on TV classes and in school and things in Cuba right now, ask them in English, what is your day job? Nobody will understand what you're talking about. They will not understand the question. They'll say, my job, I'm a musician. No, what is your day job? Oh, in the day I'm a musician, nighttime I'm a musician. Yeah, that's all they say. So it's amazing to see what that this formula is able to produce, and I know it would be that way anywhere in the world, because the human race is a very talented and artistic race, and as long as you give them the possibility to do things, then no, because I mean there seems to be so much of the world's money that is so scarce right now still spent on killing each other, like killing people from other countries and invading other countries and, waging warfare and things like that. And it's really just an amazing thing that same amazing amount of money is not available, for example, to siphon off the oil that's being spilled into the Gulf of Mexico right now. I mean, what are we talking about? British Petroleum doesn't have money to that. I mean, the government should force them to have at least 4 or 5 tankers there siphoning off the oil so that it won't mess up our Gulf of Mexico.
Let's hope we get to that. Now, we're going to run out of time, Pablo, but tell me a song on your album, the new album, that you would like us to go out with while I ask you one more question.
I love all of them.
I know you do, and I do too.
Well, just to give you an idea of how you can mix some amazing jazz and at the same time have some real roots rumba. You might play the side one, number one, like Big Brecker. It's a song dedicated to the great saxophone genius Michael Brecker, who passed away a couple of years ago. And this is written by Orlando Sanchez, and it's an amazing fusion between jazz and rumba. So like Octavio Rodriguez, our percussionist, is like one of the master drummers, master rumberos of Cuba, and he is playing about 10 different tracks here, doing a whole rumba by himself, and Orlando Sanchez doing
Before we play it, let me just ask you, where else are you going while you're in the States so that people can give others a heads up?
If you have friends that are in the Ithaca area, we're going to play at the
New
Castaways, Ithaca, in the state of New York. Anybody that's at Cornell and finished their exams or something like that, tell them to go down on Wednesday the 16th, right, to hear Mezcla at the Castaways. And we're also going to be playing the Rochester Jazz Festival in Rochester, New York. And we're going to have two concerts there at the Harrow East Ballroom. And then we're going across the border. And I wanted there to be a ferry. There used to be a ferry between Rochester and Toronto, because I would love to leave the United States on a boat instead of arriving here on a boat, and go to Toronto. And we're going to be playing at the festival called Luminato, and it's an amazing concert that's going to be called Global Blues, and it's Madagascar Slim and Salif Keita, the great Salif Keita from Mali, who's one of our favorite artists of all times. And we're going to be, Mezcla is going to be playing that concert also. So then Mezcla is playing on Saturday night in Cuba. So I will invite the audience to see you in Cuba. Come down and see us in Cuba also.
Pablo Menendez, it's always great to have you here.
I would never say anything, especially on your show. I don't want you to get in trouble and say anything, and nobody should do anything illegal. But it is true that if you go to a third country and go to Cuba, Cuba doesn't stamp your passport. They give you a
When
tourist
I
card.
went, I said, please stamp my passport. Okay, let's hear a little music. Let's have a big round of applause for Pablo Menendez. And we'll be right back with Don Rose. You're listening to Live from the Heartland.